Morning all. I'd like to show you a very interesting game of Magnus Carlsen played in the World Blitz Championship of 2009. His opponent was Alexander Morozevich. Let's have a look. D4 from Magnus, and Morozevich plays knight f6, and we see c4, e6, and now not a Queen's-Indian variation with knight f3, but Magnus plays knight c3, inviting the dreaded pin of the Nimzo-Indian. This is played. And now f3, which we've seen in the recent World Chess Championship 2013, with Anand playing this against Magnus in game 9. So let's see how this played out. Alexander castled here. We see a3, bishop takes c3, b takes. Now this knight h5, this is one of the top moves in the position. Let's quickly check live book here. d5 is the most popular, knight e8 second most, but third comes knight h5. So this was played, and the idea is this quite dangerous check here. White reacts now with knight h3 to be able to answer the check with knight f2, and without any problem, because g3 otherwise would be a problem for knight takes g3 sometimes as well. So we see black playing f5, and let's put on a bit here to see this position. Magnus first attacks the queen with bishop g5, and after queen e8 plays a surprising forcing move here. I wonder if you can guess it. If I gave you 10 seconds starting from now, what would you play as white here? Okay, Magnus played g4, very surprising g4. Attacking the knight though. F takes, knight f6. And now queen d3, offering the g-pawn, of course the black king behind it. It looks a little bit on the risky side to take this pawn. If knight takes g4, that's a quick check, rook g1. We're ready for what seems to be a very, very strong attacking initiative. Here white already has good attacking prospects of things like bishop h6 on the cards. So black wanted to play more cautiously than that and played d6, and now knight f2 protects the pawn, e5, and in response to this pawn being attacked again, just bishop g2, it keeps control of e4 as well, and looks at b7. So again the pawn cannot really be taken here. Knight c6, and now a radical decision, just taking off the f6 knight, firmly giving white control of that e4 square. After rook takes f6, white castled, king h8, and now knight e4 with tempo, a very nice knight on e4, which is difficult to disrupt at the moment. Rook g6 looks a little bit awkward, perhaps best for black wants to play rook takes f1. And maybe even bishop takes g5 after. Let's have a quick check on that. Rook takes f1, rook takes, bishop takes. It looks as though knight g5 is dangerous, but queen h5 to protect h7. Check. This kind of variation might actually be, according to engines, okay. Probably not what black had in mind, but apparently it's okay. But let's go back. This is quite a committal move to put the bishop on g6. h3, it seems a little bit almost as if it could be stranded there. Bishop d7, rook f2, and the rooks can naturally now just double on that f file. Of course the queen and rook are guarding the first rank at the moment, but knight d8, and we see here a move which volunteers closing the center. d5, it takes control of that e6 square, otherwise maybe knight e6 to f4 was actually on the cards, for example. Black played now b6, now rook a f1, and then knight b7, as though the knight's heading for c5 to challenge this mighty knight on c5 here. Now the move queen e3 is played, which does support an idea of knight g5. It also helps support g5 as well as another tempting move which might help trap the rook in the future. King g8, and in fact here g5 is actually really liked by engines, but remember this is only a blitz game. It's like 3 minutes with 2-second increments. It seems white is simply threatening h4, and
if h5 is threatened to win the rook, then it can get quite disastrous for black. For example, knight c5, h4, bishop g4. White could play queen g3 here, and there's problems ahead. Big problems ahead. Like this, for example. The rook, it just remains stranded there for quite some time. Okay, and rook f7 is giving white a big advantage. But Magnus played actually knight g5, which technically might not be that dangerous if black plays the absolute best moves. We see knight c5, which is a good move to try and help control that e6 square. But Magnus goes in there anyway. Perhaps best was, in theory, to keep the tension, maybe keep the attack going with knight f7, for example. Knight f7, and then potentially follow up with g5 again. So knight e6 is quite committal and forcing. Black took with the bishop, d takes, and of course we're looking at the rook now. And there's one or two moves which would have given a much stiffer resistance to white. Just I know it looks passive, but rook b8 or rook c8. And here, it's not completely like winning for white outright in this position. But what was played was a bit of a disaster move. It was actually the move c6. White can actually get significant advantage now. With Magnus's next move, I wonder if you can guess it. If I gave you 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, Magnus plays e7. The queen is kind of overloaded protecting c6 here. Bishop's eyeing c6. So it would be terrible to just take this. For example, bishop c6, bishop takes c6. The check here is particularly dangerous, forcing a pin. Otherwise, we've got big problems with rook f7 anyway. So assume knight e6. And white's just got a very dominant position here. A move like rook f8, and we've got a threat now, queen f3. It's a very, very powerful position indeed, with an infiltration coming up on f7 later. But in the game, we see actually, okay, we see actually the pawn being ignored with knight e6, and now Magnus, his last move is just rook f8. He's winning the queen. The pawn is helping to win the queen. It's a big material advantage. And here, Alexander Morozevich resigned. So quite a cute, shortish game from the World Blitz Championship of 2009. I hope you enjoyed it. Comments or questions on YouTube. Here is just what could happen to win the queen, by the way. And white's just big material up. Okay, thanks very much.